So we see core strategies for managing sequence of return risk falling into three basic categories. The first is kind of the simplest. Just spend so little that even if bad stuff happens, you have enough money left over. And of course, if markets turn out better, you can always spend more later. And broadly, I put that under the category of the safe withdrawal rate research, which was built around the idea of how do we just spend conservatively enough that even if we get a horrible sequence, we'll still be okay. The second option about how we can do this is to try to actually manage how the portfolio is invested. So the asset allocation and the product solutions that we use to try to ameliorate the sequence risk. So we might build up a little bit of extra reserves early on. We might use annuities with guarantees, anything that we can plug in to batten down the exposure to sequence risk in the early years when the portfolio is at its greatest danger. The third option are dynamic spending strategies. This starts with relatively simple ideas like if the market went down, we'll simply plan to spend less for a couple of years, and can go into much more in-depth what are often called guardrail strategies, where we're actually going to set a set of guardrails, kind of like bumper lanes on a bowling alley, that says as long as your spending stays in this channel, that's fine, but if your spending turns out to be dangerously high percentage because the spending is outpacing the portfolio, or ironically a concerningly low percentage, your portfolio is so outpacing your spending that you're leaving too much money on the table, then we make adjustments at the guardrails to try to stay in the zone. So we got those three different options: just spend very conservatively, manage the asset allocation and products, or manage the spending more dynamically. And many people actually do a blend of all three. I think the starting point for just handling sequence risk is really understanding how it works. That can be doing some of the reading and research, great studies going back to Bill Bengen's original safe withdrawal rate study, and a lot that have come since, to make sure you really understand how sequence risk works, why it matters, including what it is and what it's not. It's often framed as things like, well, what happens if I retire and there's a huge bear market out of the gate? That's actually not the biggest risk in sequences, because if I get a huge bear market out of the gate and a very rapid recovery, it doesn't matter. If I retired in 1987 and I had the worst crash in market history, a year later the portfolio was higher than it was when I retired. Total crash was irrelevant from a retirement perspective. But when we get extended bear markets, or even worse, bad decades, where just the whole decade of returns is low, that's when we really get into trouble. And so just understanding what sequence risk really is and is not, and then starting to delve in some of the strategies, is how you get started. If you don't understand how it works yourself, you can't explain it to clients and help them deal with it.